Welcome back, everybody, to What I Watched This Week with Alec. My name is Alec, and we're going to talk about what I watched this week. Trying to make this a little bit better every single time. I actually turned off the AC, but I've got a fan blowing on me. I noticed in my last videos that you could hear the AC really, really easily. We just got this big wall unit here. So I turned that off. Hopefully I don't start sweating. If you start seeing my pits start to pool up, then forgive me. I'm just trying to make sure the video and the audio is as good as it needs to be. Again, I might get up a couple of times and make sure that we're still recording, which we are, so that's good. Because I'm all paranoid now, because in the second episode, I recorded and it didn't record anything. So on today's episode, we're gonna talk, I went to the movies a couple of times this week. I went and saw the Odyssey, I went and saw Motor City, and the third one that I'm gonna talk about is One Battle After Another. Didn't see that one in theater. I did see it when it came out last year, but I thought it might be a good one to pair it with because, it's a movie that I really, really enjoyed seeing in theaters. And it was one of my favorites of last year. One of my favorite movies that came out last year. So we're going to talk about these great theater movies that I've seen recently. Before we do that, today's Physical Media Minute is actually just the Blu-ray of One Battle After Another. That's how I watched it. I think it's streaming on HBO or something like that right now. But if I have a copy of it, I almost always try to watch the physical copy. You can't really beat the convenience of streaming services, especially if you're not really sure what you're in the mood to watch. But I always opt for the physical copy. I know it's not always better. I think typically when you have a Blu-ray, it's almost guaranteed to be better than the streaming version. I don't know all the science of streaming, but I do know if your internet connection is not that great, they throttle it down, and all of a sudden you're watching, 1990 dial-up movie. It never gets that bad, but you know what I mean. I always try to watch it on the physical media, especially if I have a Blu-ray. That's how I watched it this time. You know the one thing that I'm really, really bummed out about with this new physical media? Oh, I've got a digital code. Maybe I'll download that. That's cool. But one thing that I'm really bummed out about with DVDs and Blu-rays is we don't get special features anymore. That used to be half the fun of owning the DVD, is that you would watch it, and then if you had, another 45 minutes to spare, you could watch some making-of documentaries or some little docuettes, I don't know. Little, just quick, 15, 20-minute things on how they made the movie or deleted scenes or stuff like that. We don't get that on any of the Blu-rays or the DVDs that come out anymore. I think the only way to get that is if you get like a Criterion Collection edition, a Criterion Collection edition. They always have, they call it supplements. But you get special features on that. There's another, I'm going to see if I can find it really, really quick. Just right behind me, all my DVDs right here. It's an edition that I have of a movie, here it is, called Borsellino. And Borsellino is a 1970 French crime movie starring Jean-Pierre Belmondo and Alain Delon. I found this randomly. This is an Arrow. And it had a bunch of cool special features on it. It also had like a really cool bunch of posters in it. This movie rocks. I'm gonna have to do an episode on this because this is like a hidden gem. I like foreign movies. Not everybody likes foreign movies, but yeah, unless you get an Arrow or a Criterion Collection, we don't really get special features anymore, which really sucks. I guess those documentaries and those special features are on YouTube or whatever, but they should be right there on the disc. So I missed that. All right. Hopping straight in. I'm a little bit behind. I know that the Odyssey came out a couple of weeks ago, so maybe I won't even penetrate the algorithm with this, but hopefully it'll be, seen a little bit. But the Odyssey, a 2026 film, you guys already know this, directed by Christopher Nolan, starring. It is an adaptation of Homer's The Odyssey. A lot of us know Troy, starring Brad Pitt as Achilles. So for anybody who doesn't know, that is what is Homer's The Iliad, and then this is The Odyssey. And right off the bat, before I get into any of the actors, stars Matt Damon as Odysseus, this version of The Odyssey by Christopher Nolan. It's both. It's the Iliad and the Odyssey. It's just done in true Christopher Nolan format where while we're being told the story of the Odyssey, we get intercut little pieces of the Iliad. And the Iliad is basically the fall of Troy, right? It's Odysseus and Agamemnon and the armies of that section going over and taking the city of Troy. That's what the Iliad is. And so we get those moments of like the fall of Troy, right? We see the Trojan horse, we see all of those battles. It's intercut into the Odyssey. And that's one of those things that makes me think right away, like Christopher Nolan is a, master filmmaker. I'm not trying to give him notes. I'm not trying to tell him what he should have done. But especially when you're dealing with a 3-hour movie like The Odyssey, part of me started thinking, man, this should have been cut into 2 movies. And I think that might have even driven the hype. Obviously, The Odyssey is making a ton of money. It's not hurting for money. It's not hurting for ticket sales. But what I think might have even driven that hype higher is if Christopher Nolan did both of them, right? He did the Iliad, right? And then he did the Odyssey, right? We get the Iliad in 2026, and then we get the Odyssey in 2028 or something like that. I know that's a lot of work, but if we're going to have a 3-hour movie, break them up into, an hour 45 or and 2 hours each. Make it a 2-parter. The Iliad comes out, we get Matt Damon, we get Agamemnon, Benny Safdie, we get all of that, and then bring those characters back for the Odyssey. I think that might have been a really cool way to do it, especially because, the entire movie, while we're seeing what happened in the fall of Troy, I just kept sitting there thinking, this makes me want to watch Troy. I liked the Odyssey. I think it was an incredibly made movie. I didn't love it. It wasn't like the most amazing thing I had ever seen. It's not even in my top 3 favorite Christopher Nolan movies, I don't think. It's good. It's amazing. It's so well made, but it's not my favorite. Like I said, the entire time I was watching it, I was like, man, I kind of wish I was watching Troy. Not I wish I was watching Troy, but man, I want to go home and watch Troy with Achilles. I think if I had to take the pick between the 2, I would rather watch Troy. And maybe that's my, small brain popcorn kind of guy that's like, nah, man, I want the Odyssey had plenty of amazing battle scenes and action scenes. But dang, if Troy isn't just dope, and it's mostly dope because we get Brad Pitt as Achilles just kicking butt and taking names the whole movie. So, and that's kind of why I kind of lean back on, man, I kind of wish we had had the 2 movies. Christopher Nolan's take on the Iliad, where we get to see the entire, if you don't know the Iliad and the Odyssey, if you haven't seen Troy before going to see the Odyssey, some of the details get a little jumbled. You're like, wait, who actually is Helen of Troy? Why did Agamemnon and his forces want to take Troy? A lot of those details, because they're being told through flashbacks and a lot of it is being told through the Punisher's character. Why am I spacing his name right now? I should probably look it up here really quick. Oh my gosh, shoot. John Bernthal. John Bernthal's character, I can't remember his name. He's kind of just retelling us the story of the Iliad, retelling us what happened for the fall of Troy. And if we're going to take all that time for him to just be a narrator of what happened, I wish we could have just experienced it. And that's, I think, my biggest beef with this movie is that it's kind of 2 movies packed into one that can be done properly. It was done really, really well in this case. But part of me just thought, man, I kind of just wish I could have experienced Troy, experienced the Iliad, and then take me through Odysseus. Because, Odysseus plays a huge part in the fall of Troy, but he's not necessarily like the main character, right? The Iliad kind of focuses on Achilles and Agamemnon, and then Odysseus is kind of this side guy who does come up with the idea of the Trojan horse, and then we get his story after that in the Odyssey. And part of me just kind of wishes we had had both of them because, the 3 hours goes by quickly. And I think Christopher Nolan if we're going to talk about his mastery of filmmaking, we need to talk about pacing, right? Because a lot of his movies are, 2.5, 2:45, 3-hour movies, but they never feel that way. They really move really, really well. And that's one thing I can say that works really, really well in the Odyssey. It moves really well. Kudos to that. But I sort of wish we had had the two movies separately, because then we get to have the full experience of the Iliad, of the fall of Troy, and then we could have a full separate experience where we don't need to keep jumping back and looking at what happened before, and we can just experience what's going on in the Odyssey and Odysseus' journey back home. Let's see. Also, the entire time, this is such a huge cast. I'll just read it off. Matt Damon as Odysseus, Tom Holland as his son, Anne Hathaway as his wife, Robert Pattinson, Lupita Nyong'o, I don't know how to pronounce that. I wish I did, sorry. Samantha Morton, Zendaya, Charlize Theron, and then, like I said, Benny Safdie plays Agamemnon. John Berthal's in it. This cast is stacked, and it would have been really cool to see them in the two different movies. But the entire time I was like, oh shoot, are we going to get a secret Achilles, cameo? And I wonder who might play him. But they make reference to Achilles, but we never see him. And so it would have been cool to see Christopher Nolan's take on that character. And the only way that he would have been able to do that justice if we had done the two movies. So let's talk about performances real quick, because that's one thing that I really, really enjoy. Matt Damon, great job. Anne Hathaway, great job. Tom Holland, great job. Everybody already knows this. Everybody's already been talking about it. Robert Pattinson, I think, actually is kind of like the lead the best performance in this movie. And it's because the character is the most sniveling, I don't even know if I'm using that word correctly. It's just a word I've heard 100 times. Sniveling. He's a nasty, scheming beta trying to take over the kingdom, and Pattinson plays that to perfection. He plays it really, really well. The other guy that I want to shout out, because he's not getting, as far as I've seen, he's not getting any shine, is John Leguizamo, of all people. Let me see if I can jump down to the cast here real quick. Casting. Will it just give me a list of the cast? Oh, there we go, cast. Zendaya, Charlize Theron, John Bernthal. Sorry, this is not great. Oh, John Leguizamo is Eumaeus, who is kind of... Eumaeus is Odysseus's mentor. And then with Odysseus being away for so many years, he also becomes Tom Holland, who plays Telemachus. He becomes his mentor in a way too. And he plays this, blind, kind of wiser guy. And let me tell you, I don't know if John Leguizamo, we all know him from, Sid the Sloth and The Pest. And I remember him from the Romeo and Juliet, where he played Tybalt. But I don't know if anybody's ever considered him to be a great actor, but holy moly, I think that he deserves more credit for this movie. John Leguizamo's performance as Eumaeus, as the blind old wise guy, it's very subtle, it's very subdued, but it's very powerful. Especially the way that his character links Odysseus to his son. That link doesn't happen without that character of Eumaeus in the middle, and John Leguizamo freaking nails it. So, that's pretty funny. I'm talking about the Odyssey, and I'm sure everybody who makes any videos or talks about the Odyssey is going to talk about, either the sound design, or they're going to talk about the special effects and all that stuff, or I want to talk about John Leguizamo. I think he killed it in this movie. Some of the scenes that are, highlights, we all know, we've seen them kind of in the trailers. Not that the trailers give too much away, but the island that they land on with the giants, that scene is extraordinary. The Cyclops, that whole sequence and that island, that set of scenes is so much fun. This is a really fun movie, and it's really cool. It's one of those, it's just a cool movie. Like I said, it doesn't jump into my top Christopher Nolan movies, and if anybody cares, My top three would be, I had these in my head and now I can't even remember them. Oh, I'm spacing on them right now. Oh, duh. Inception is probably my number one. I love The Prestige. And number three is probably Interstellar. It's hard not to say Interstellar. That movie's really, really, really good, even though it's like, I don't know, the Matthew McConaughey performance is my favorite part about that, but I don't know if I love that movie as much as I love other movies. I'm a big Insomnia fan. I know that's like on nobody's list. I should say I have not seen Oppenheimer. I probably should have watched it for this episode. So that might be up there. Definitely Inception and The Prestige. Those are my top two, and The Odyssey doesn't quite crack that. So, and it doesn't have to. We're all going to have our favorites. The Odyssey is just a fun experience. Okay, being a movie guy, being a movie fan, I did not see it in IMAX. And I know a lot of people are going to rake me over the coals for that. Well, you know, that's the meme, right? You didn't see it in the right format, you know. If you would have loved it if you saw it in IMAX because it was filmed for IMAX. I couldn't get tickets to IMAX. There's only one IMAX theater in my city, and I was tired of waiting. I was like, I'm not going to wait any longer, especially because people are like legit filming it on their phones in the theater and putting clips up online, which should be illegal. I didn't want any spoilers, so I said, you know what, I'm not waiting for IMAX anymore, and I just went and saw it in the best theater I could find. So I didn't see it in IMAX. I haven't seen Oppenheimer. Like I said, I probably should have watched that as the third movie for this one, but The Odyssey was cool. It was good. It was great. I think it's probably gonna get a ton of Oscar nominations. I can't say, in my own opinion, that there's any like standout performance or standout aspect of this movie that will like shoo it in for an Oscar. I don't think that 2026 has been particularly strong for the new movies. There's been some blockbusters. There's been some fun stuff. You know, when it comes to, I'm sure, sound editing, special effects, that kind of stuff is Christopher Nolan's bag. That's probably the stuff that he'll get nominated and win for. But, you know, Matt Damon did great. Robert Pattinson is great. I'm not seeing any like standout performances that make me go, yep, that guy's going to win the Oscar this year. That's my prediction. I could be totally wrong. We'll have to see how the rest of the year goes. Let's jump into our next movie. So the next movie, this is Motor City. It's an action thriller written by Chad St. John and directed by Potsy Ponciroli. I've never heard those names before. I think that that's a first-time director. This is the movie that I was actually more excited for, not because I thought it was going to be better than The Odyssey, but because it's a smaller movie. And I told people that I went and saw it, and they're like, oh, I didn't even know that that was a movie. Exactly, right? It was in the theater right next to me. It played for one weekend, and then it didn't play in that theater, so I had to go to the theater on the other side of town to see it because I wasn't able to see it opening weekend and opening week, which is such a bummer. These smaller movies that have come out this year, so one movie that I do think is absolutely incredible that came out at the beginning of the year, it's called Hangman's Wire. It's based on a true story 70s crime thriller. Definitely check that movie out. Movies like that and movies like Motor City, they're playing for one weekend, and if you don't go see them, then movie theaters are pulling them. So, which is a huge shame because it's these kind of like mid-budget action thrillers that I think, you know, horror is getting like this kind of renaissance of like mid-budget horror masterpieces, you know. I didn't go see Obsession. I didn't go see Backrooms. That's not really my shtick. But horror fans are like eating really good. And it's like, dang, action thrillers, right? I want to see mid-level action thrillers do really, really good so that I can be eating good too. And you know what? I've been eating all right. You know, like I go see them, so I'm eating good. But I feel like the action thriller fandom that I think I belong to, they deserve more. And it's these kinds of movies that like need a little bit more time, and we need more people to go see them. They need to be marketed a little bit better. So anyway, that's my spiel on action thrillers and them being in theaters and what I'm bummed out about them. Let's get into what it actually is. So it stars Alan Ritchson, which a lot of you will probably know from, he plays Jack Reacher in the Amazon series. I also know him as Thad Castle from Blue Mountain State. Shout out to my buddy Dylan, who I watched, the first 2 seasons of that show with. That wasn't one that I was into when I was young when it came out. He introduced it to me, so I appreciate that from him. Blue Mountain State, Thad Castle, Alan Ritchson. He's the big 6'5", handsome as all get out beefcake that is everybody kind of knows and adores right now, and I like him too. He's great. Essentially what Motor City is it is a revenge thriller about a man who gets wrongfully thrown in jail, and basically he gets set up by this drug lord, gets thrown in jail, and it's his revenge story of getting out of jail and trying to get his girl back. The drug lord, played by Ben Foster, which I'll talk about him in just a minute, sets him up so that he can get him out of the picture and win his girl back. And so Alan Ritchson's character breaks out of jail and he goes on this revenge tirade to take revenge on the guy who stole his life from him, right? And here's the big kicker. This movie has practically no dialogue. Maybe 8 to 10 actual full lines of dialogue. There's plenty of moments where, characters are speaking to each other, but you either see them from afar and you don't hear what they're saying, or it's done through montage, so you can see them mouthing things and you can kind of infer what they're saying or what they're at least trying to tell each other, but there's music over the top of it, right? A very, very intriguing, a very, very interesting way to do an entire movie. This movie, let's see if I have a runtime here. 103 minutes. So we're looking at, what's that? An hour and 40 minutes, hour and 40, 43, 45 minutes of practically no dialogue. And that's really, really interesting. It's really, really fun. I really enjoyed this movie. The no dialogue did sort of seem like a gimmick about partway through the movie. And I hate to say that because I'm such a big fan of these, it's still an action thriller, so it still has everything that you would want from it, right? It's got, big fist fights and gun fights and explosions and tough guys being tough and weasels being weasels and drug lords being drug lords. It has everything that you would want from it. It's got these big set pieces. It's got, record drops all the way through it. One of the big ones is, The Chain by Fleetwood Mac. You've got a lot, and it's set in the 70s, so it's everything that you could ever want. But the no dialogue about partway through the movie, you kind of sit and you go, they would be talking to each other. A lot of the movie is done through body language and gesturing. And you start to think, and I think this is where it really kicked in with me, is the scene where Ben Foster is sitting at the diner with Shailene Woodley, who's the love interest, Alan Ritchson's love interest, and they're just gesturing to each other. And Ben Foster is basically trying to convince her, hey, we should get back together through body language and gestures. And I kind of started thinking, I know this is a movie, but in real life, in this situation, they would be talking to each other. And so the no dialogue kind of started to work against itself a little bit, because at a certain point, the no dialogue started to break its own disbelief, if that makes sense. Which was kind of a bummer. It didn't kill the movie for me. It didn't ruin it by any means. I'm kind of glad that they took that swing and they wanted to do something so unique. But, we as movie watchers, we're trained to expect certain things, you know what I mean? And I am a big fan of long portions of no dialogue, and I'm a big fan of the concept of say less, mean more, right? Or economy of words. Say as much as you need to say in as short amount of words as possible. I believe in that very heavily when it comes to movies. However, when you push that to its absolute limits, me as a movie watcher, I feel like they'd be talking to each other right now. Let me go ahead and check real quick, make sure we're still recording. Okay, we're good. So that's really my only beef with this movie, is that I think they pushed that to its limit, and I think they pushed over the limit where the typical movie watcher, and I would consider myself to be the typical movie watcher in most cases, started to go, I love what they're doing, but I really feel like they would be talking to each other right now. So I'm a big fan of Motor City. I like the swing that it took. I think it looks great. I think the performances are great. It is a high testosterone, beat 'em up. I'm not going to give anything away, but there is a brutal. It's a brutal freaking movie. There is a fight scene between Alan Ritchson's character and let me look at his name before I. It's Liev Schreiber's brother, Pablo Schreiber. So Pablo Schreiber and Alan Ritchson have this brutal fight inside of an elevator. It's action movie. It's action movie mastery. It is awesome, and it's those kind of things that I love about the movie. We had a small role from let me jump to the cast again. From Ben McKenzie. Ben McKenzie plays this 70s detective. He's freaking awesome. Alan Ritchson did a great job. But the actor that really stole the show is without a doubt Ben Foster. Ben Foster is not a name that a lot of people know. I know him because I've seen him in a couple things. I'm like, who is that guy? The most high profile role that he's had is in a movie called Hell or High Water, where he plays Chris Pine's brother. And they are a brother duo that are robbing banks across Texas. And Ben Foster is a freaking force of nature in that movie. In Hell or High Water, he is absolutely incredible. And in this movie, he is absolutely incredible. I believe he's also in 3:10 to Yuma. I think he plays the bad guy's right-hand man. I should really look up what else he's in and just go on like a Ben Foster run. Ben Foster is a freaking beast, and he is a beast in everything that he's in. Ben Foster, he plays the ex-boyfriend drug lord. They went full American Hustle on him, which I think I have that movie over here too. I think that's one that I think I have. No, I don't have American Hustle. If you've seen American Hustle, Christian Bale plays this kind of overweight. He's got this big old belly. He's got this comb over, this pure 70s, chest hair chain. Ben Foster, he gets that makeup and costuming put on him, and he freaking nails it. He is a devious, scheming bad guy, and I think that the whole no dialogue, body language, gesturing aspect of this movie suits him the best because he's so good at it. And that might be another thing that I would bring up if I'm talking about the whole no dialogue thing. I think for an actor like Ben Foster, an actor like Ben McKenzie, those two dudes do it really, really well. And the other actors in the movie, we just need to see a little bit more from them, including Alan Ritchson. Alan Ritchson's a good actor. I think he does a really good job in this. His presence in this movie is about presence. That's it, right? He's a ginormous dude, and so he fills that role great. But there are some moments where he's sitting across from Ben Foster, and Ben Foster is just acting him under the table because he's Ben Foster, And that's no dig on Alan Ritchson. It's just Ben Foster, for crying out loud. And anybody who knows who Ben Foster is, they'll understand what I'm saying when I say that. So I would very highly recommend Motor City. It's probably coming to streaming soon. Check it out. You will have a great time, especially if you're an action thriller guy. You will really, really dig this movie. All right. Let's jump into our last movie, One Battle After Another. And it's crazy to think that this is number 3 on the, tier of it, because One Battle After Another is a freaking phenomenal movie. Holy moly. It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy to think that it goes 1, 2, and One Battle After Another is the third name on the list. Last year, 2025, let me jump to awards because I want to make sure I get accolades. I just want to see Oscars. Ultimately, the film won 4 Golden Globes. I don't want to know. It also became the most nominated film in history of this. No, anyway. I know for sure it won 3 Oscars. It might have won a 4th for editing. But Best Director in Paul Thomas Anderson. Best Film. And I know that Best Supporting Actor went to Sean Penn. All 3 of those, when the Oscars were happening for the 2025 selections, those were my picks. I couldn't think of another movie that I thought deserved those 3 awards more than this movie. This movie is absolutely incredible. For anybody who hasn't seen it or anybody who doesn't know, it follows Leonardo DiCaprio's character, and he plays this revolutionary, and he's kind of like an underling in this group of revolutionaries. What are they called? The French 75? Something like that. And anyway, these guys are domestic terrorists. Let's not sugarcoat it. These guys are, robbing banks and blowing up embassies, and, they're doing the things that they perceive to be the right thing, freeing illegal immigrants. It's obvious you can't. I'm not trying to make a political stance or anything, but these are people who are doing what they perceive to be the right thing, but they're doing it in a domestic terrorist kind of way. And Leonardo DiCaprio, he is in love with Teyana Taylor's character. What's her name in this movie? I gotta say, some of the names in here are really, really funny. Beverly Hills. What's her name? Something Beverly Hills. Cast, golly. Teyana Taylor as Perfidia Beverly Hills. So he falls in love with them. They have a baby. And then through the course of the movie, essentially, Perfidia Beverly Hills takes off. She doesn't have any desire to be a mother. She wants to continue raging against the machine, and she doesn't want to be a mother, and so she takes off. And she gets caught. And she gets caught by Sean Penn's character, Colonel Lockjaw, the Oscar-winning performance that is outrageous by Sean Penn. And she sells out her revolutionaries. She sells them out. And so then we jump a few years ahead. The baby is now a teenager, and we see the aftermath of that whole setup. I don't want to give away much more than that if you haven't seen it. If you have seen it, hopefully that's a good enough summary to kind of get you started. A couple of things that I want to talk about in this movie. The performances, top to bottom, are all amazing. A case could be made that almost everyone in this movie could have walked away with the Oscar. And just about everybody in this movie was nominated. DiCaprio was nominated for Best Actor. Teyana Taylor was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. Sean Penn nominated and won. Benicio del Toro, good gracious. Regina Hall was I don't know if she was nominated for this one, but she was incredible. Chase Infinity, who plays Leonardo DiCaprio and Teyana Taylor's daughter, she was awesome. All over the place, this movie had performances top to bottom. All of them could have been most of them were nominated. All of them could have been nominated, and there's a case to be made that all of them could have won. Everyone already knows that. Let's get past that. Let's jump to the next thing. What really stood out about this movie when I was watching it in theaters is the pacing of this movie. Again, this is also a movie that I think is close to 3 hours long. Let's see, 162 minutes. That would be 90 would be 120 would be 2. So we're talking 2 hours and 40 minutes. So we're getting close to the 3 hour mark. And just like the Odyssey, just like a Christopher Nolan movie, this movie freaking jams. We do not feel the runtime of this movie even once. It is moving so quickly. And it's because I think, this is me trying to understand what Paul Thomas Anderson, again, next to Christopher Nolan, next to a lot of other guys, is kind of like one of the best working directors in Hollywood right now. I think it's because this movie is really like, it feels like a 2.5 hour montage. And it's done like the opening the opening sequence where we get to see DiCaprio, Teyana, Lockjaw, we get to see that whole like start of the conflict until Teyana Taylor takes off. That would be handled like a half-hour opening sequence in any other movie, and then title card. But that's like an hour plus of this movie. And the way that the music and the editing just keeps things rolling, it's almost like a montage. And then we settle for a minute. We see how DiCaprio's doing now. We see how his daughter is doing now. And then it picks right back up, and it doesn't really let off until the end of the movie. This movie feels like two montages with a settle moment right in the middle. But those montages are chock full of character development and character choices. And I don't know how in the world you edit that and make it feel like that, but that's what happens. And that's why I think, like I said, I feel like this had to have won the Oscar for editing. I'm sure it was nominated, but it's one of those like, yep, that's why PTA wins the Oscar for Best Director. Like, there's no other way around it. Like, this movie moves so quickly. It's edited amazingly. Character development is not lost, which, when you lean on montage really, really heavily, a lot of the times you lose some of those character beats. And it's because you're having to show the passage of time and the passage of consequences, but we don't miss any of that. And, maybe that just has to do with the music. Maybe someone else might watch this and disagree with me completely. They're like, no, those aren't montages. They're full sequences and they're full parts of the movie. That's just kind of what it felt like to me, because I'm trying to like explain to myself, how does this move so quickly and the pedal is to the metal the entire time, but I'm still getting all of the character development that I would from any other high value movie. And I say high value meaning just like masterpiece kind of level movie. How in the heck am I feeling that? And that's the only way I can think to describe it. What I really, really liked about this movie is, a lot of people walked out of it, and this is one of those movies that I think, and this is just I'm not taking a political stance on this, but I have conservative friends who hated the movie because they thought it was anti-conservative, and I have, more leftist friends who hated it because they thought it was anti-leftist. How do you do that, right? Like, that's amazing, right? And that's why I really liked it, because, you start this movie and you're kind of making the hero out of these revolutionaries, but the more you watch it, you're like, these guys are domestic terrorists, you know what I mean? And especially Teyana Taylor's character, she's a bad person. Like, she's straight up bad. She's meant to be this kind of like, not meant to be, but I think a lot of people perceived her as this kind of like, female empowerment, like, hero. But when it comes down to it, she's maybe more selfish than anybody else in the movie. She doesn't want to be a mom. She's only concerned with herself, and that's what makes her leave. And then when she leaves, she turns in all of her buddies anyway. Teyana Taylor is like kind of the villain of this movie. However, right, at the same time, we have Colonel Lockjaw. And Colonel Lockjaw, a little bit of a spoiler, gets embedded in this kind of, satirical Illuminati group, right? They're meant to be like this white supremacist Illuminati group, but they're so overblown that it's satire. And I think that that's why, like I said, some conservative people are like, no, it's anti-conservative. And you're like, yeah, like, not really, because it's so overblown that it's satire. It's a joke. At least that's how I interpreted it. And that's one thing that I think is really, really fun and really, really cool about this movie, is that no matter where you are on the political line, I think you can go, I don't like that guy and I don't like that guy, but also I realize that people like this don't actually exist, or the majority of people like this don't exist on these extremes. They're pushed so far to the extreme that they almost kind of become a joke of the people that they're kind of portraying. Lockjaw is an absolute joke of a person, right? And that's why Sean Penn is so good as him. Because I think, Sean Penn doesn't play it as a joke. He plays it as completely sincere. But the writing and the dialogue is so good for that character that we sit back and we go, this guy is ridiculous. And I think the same thing could be said of Teyana Taylor, right? Teyana Taylor's so good because she plays it so sincere and so selfishly, but you have to lean back and go, people that nasty don't really exist. And you can say that about both of those characters. So I think that that's kind of like a stroke of masterclass from Paul Thomas Anderson. And he wrote this too. He had to have. Yeah, written, directed, and produced by Paul Thomas Anderson. So that's a master stroke of writing and directing. So my hat's off to you, PTA. This movie is absolutely incredible. I know I'm a year late on talking about it, but I think this is one of those movies that people will talk about for quite a while. I could go into a lot of different things about this movie. The chase scene at the very end with the rolling hills, that scene has been talked about by everybody, and I'm not avoiding talking about it because I didn't like it. I loved it. It's amazing, but what's been said about it has already been said. The supporting characters in this movie, aside from those people that I listed off that are amazing actors, you think of like the military interrogator. Holy crap, that guy is good. Did I talk about this with, there are certain movies, and I'm going to name off a couple of them, right? Any movie by the Coen brothers, especially The Big Lebowski, especially, No Country for Old Men, Raising Arizona, and the other one that I want to say, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, is that every character in those movies feels like the main character of their own movie. And the other one, A Knight's Tale. I love A Knight's Tale, and even down to the smallest character in that movie, I think that character includes like an entire ecosystem of character. And that person is somehow a main character. Every character in those movies that I mentioned are so freaking interesting, and they're not even the focal point of the movie. This movie does that too. One Battle After Another does that especially well. Every member of the French 75, the revolutionary group, you can feel a whole ecosystem of a character in that one person. Like I said, the military interrogator, Chase Infinity's friends at her high school. I've seen those people exist. I've seen them. I know that they're real. They're not movie characters, they're real. And that's one of those things that I think is absolutely incredible about this movie. All right, I think I'm going to tie it off there. The Odyssey and Motor City, if you're able to still go see them in theaters, go see them in theaters. They were great. You'll have a great time. And One Battle After Another, if that feels like your cup of tea, it's on HBO. But like I said, do your absolute best to watch it physical media. I think we need to be supporting Blu-rays and DVDs as much as we possibly can. So do that. See you guys.